Good evening. This is Maestro Cortello with the Dawn of War 2 Retribution Elite Modcast. Today, we have a 3v3 on Estia Province. Our first player is Kisuke, or Kisuke, playing as the Orc Warboss. Big tanky melee hero who can charge, be aggressive, and also use some powerful buffs. His first teammate is Grenta, playing as the Chaos Lord. This is a tanky melee hero in Terminator armor. He cannot be knocked down or suppressed, and he can disrupt with Kill the Weak. Finally on the blue team, we have Tenso, playing as Sindri, Trollface, Chaos Sorcerer. This is a spellcasting hero. He has some long-range damage spells, as well as teleporting and manipulation. On the other team, first of all, we've got Turning the Page. It almost seems strangely profound. This guy is playing as an Apothecary. This is a healing and support commander, kind of like only decent as a fighter, really. Next up, we've got Dank Memes. I'm a big fan of this name, playing as the Techmarine. This is a ranged commander to start out. He's got a gun for every occasion, and he also synergizes very, very well with vehicles, and he can build relay beacons and turrets. Finally, we have Tsototar, playing as the Warp Spider Exarch. This is a teleporting ranged commander who can also still tie things up decently in melee. Alright then. So, I'm back in action now with a brand new GTX 960 in my system. It looks absolutely amazing, looks like a freaking Ferrari next to the Honda Civic that was my old HD Radeon 6870, which was kind of failing. Had some issues with the video RAM on the card, and it was giving me some issues with artifacts as well as, well, booting issues. So, it was pretty much time to replace it. But we're back anyway. We've got attacks as well as scouts in the garrison right there. Garrisons, of course, pretty powerful in the early game when there are really no anti-garrison options around, or at least none purchased yet. Anyway, Warboss potentially in a bit of trouble, although I think he still has enough health to make it out of there alive without getting incapacitated. And Chaos Space Marines right here. It looks like this is Grenta won a little bit of an offensive. Should be able to destroy this node that's been put down by the red team. It's a little bit of a commitment of time for Grenta, but still ultimately something in their favor. Wow, and actually the node is recapped to deny the decap, but I don't think Grenta would be able to get the decap anyway because now he's being totally overwhelmed. This particular squad of Chaos Space Marines needs to go. It's completely overwhelmed. Banshees are here. This squad of Chaos Space Marines will most likely get wiped. We have Grenta just responding way too late. Grenta is getting absolutely destroyed right here. I think pretty much just lucky not to lose that squad of Chaos Space Marines. I think that was Tsototar must have given up the chase with his Howling Banshees. I think he opted to tie up the other squad of Chaos Space Marines rather than attempt a wipe on that fleeing one. But I think this particular squad of Chaos Space Marines could have been wiped entirely. Grenta, in fact, both Grenta and Tenso really lost quite handily in that engagement. Grenta losing his hero, and he lost his hero in definitely not a great position. If you lose your hero beyond like the halfway point in the map, that usually means you're going to end up having to buy back your hero. Not all the time, but usually, since it's usually hard for a friendly hero to get that far without being attacked or forced off the hero or forced off the field himself. Meanwhile, we have a complete tie of 469 to 469 VPs. Shouldn't last too long, though, with the Warboss on the point capping. I actually like the way the Warboss is on the point, and he's actually capping and shooting in range at the same time. Meanwhile, Turning the Page was content to just sit there while getting suppressed, but he managed to put some purification vials on top of Kisuke's Ludas, and then he actually didn't want to leave the Ludas around in there too long. I think the Ludas would have survived, but they weren't at full health, so he probably didn't want to risk it. And it definitely would not have been really a good situation for him. The Ludas, I'm pretty sure actually that they still would have ended up retreating eventually. I don't think they would have had too much choice in that matter. So Kisuke is forced off the field. Meanwhile, we do have some Warp Spider Exarch. The Warp Spider Exarch definitely has a lot of powerful assets against Chaos. I'd say one of the big things is that he bleeds heretic models so easily. He can just teleport in, bleed those heretic models, and those heretics really are at a loss against the Warp Spider Exarch. If they try to approach, he'll teleport away. Even if they do get into range against the Warp Spider Exarch, they won't be really winning that handily against him. Especially if he chooses to upgrade to the melee weapon, the Power Blades. And he actually has decent melee to start out. I don't like the position of Chaos right here. We should see a Doom Blast from the Heretics. And also some nice disruption, so a little bit of a save, but still definitely not a winning... That was not a particularly winning engagement for the Chaos players. Our Chaos players so far not looking especially strong. And we even have Banshees right here. They're at less than half health, but they can still afford to chase the Heretics because these Heretics, even if they were not retreating, would have no chance against the Howling Banshees with a bunch of grenade launchers. Anyway, at this point, the Howling Banshees should get out of there so that they do not lose a model. If they stay in here any longer, they will lose a model. So at this point, these Howling Banshees, they've already lost. Wow, they're actually going to possibly wipe? So that was a major, major overextension by Tsototar. He never had to lose a single Howling Banshee model on that squad. Pretty much as he had a half-health squad of Howling Banshees bashing generators. Pretty much as soon as he saw the Raptors and the Chaos Space Marines approach, he should have pulled back. That was ultimately just not a good decision by him. He lost 4 Howling Banshee models. That's going to cost him a lot of requisition. Not such great positioning from turning the page, but he does use a Purification Vial to help compensate for that. A Noise Marine model does go down. This was Grenta. He was actually just standing around in the area of effect for the Purification Vials. He only lost 1 model because he's got some tough Chaos Space Marines and Noise Marines, but he was still just standing around in there. It didn't help turning the page enough, though, and turning the page is also a little bit short on his army. He's invested heavily in upgrades. He has 2 squads of scouts that have 4 models. That means they have a sergeant. They also have shotguns. So these scouts are very heavily invested in. The Apothecary is also heavily invested in. And this is something that is kind of slightly against, like, I'm trying to think of the right word. Not necessarily common knowledge, but like common wisdom, maybe? Even though those kind of mean the same thing. But it's not generally the best strategy. Generally, you want slightly less investment in upgrades and a 4th squad. That's not to say that it's always the wrong decision or that it can't work, but generally, that's generally what you want. Slightly fewer upgrades and a 4th squad. Alright, I actually think the Orcs right now are in a pretty strong position, except for the Purification Vials. Purification Vials hitting pretty nicely, and we just have a retreat from Kisuke, not wanting to risk too much. We're going to see... oh, I wanted to see that drop pod just knock over the Warboss. Anyway, drop pod now deploys another squad of Tactical Marines, so now Turning the Page does have a new squad, but he does have it rather late. Most of the players are in Tier 2. Turning the Page almost mysteriously not in Tier 2. Looks like he's easily the last person to go in Tier 2 because he's still in Tier 1, and I'm not entirely sure why. Grenade's gonna drop on the Noise Marines. 1 model goes down, and this particular squad of Noise Marines has now been upgraded to the Blastmaster to make it a long-range artillery unit. We also have a melee Techmarine who was way overextended and went down in retreat from dank memes. Dank memes look like he's got like a full blue color scheme. I actually almost like that full blue. It looks really, really nice. I think that this particular shade of blue, there is something nice about this particular shade of blue. Anyway, Tsototar saying he has no AV, you know, well, he's got to do something about that. He's got to get some AV. He's getting a Wraith Lord, which can be AV. He can get some Power Blades on his Warp Spider Exarch. He can always get a Bright Lance. Usually the go-to, I'd say the easiest go-to AV for Eldar, like when you really need AV, is the Bright Lance. Since it is... generally, it's certainly for cost, it is by far the strongest AV you can get in Tier 2. It's cheap, period. And it actually outperforms a lot of other AV that Eldar have in Tier 2. So that's usually what you get. Sometimes that means you're sacrificing a shuriken cannon, and I mean, to be honest, sometimes that's just what you gotta do. I don't know why, but it always seems like turning the page is getting suppressed. Part of the reason is his composition. He doesn't really have units that quite as easily break suppression or give an answer to suppression as something like Assault Marines. He doesn't have Assault Marines. He could infiltrate his scouts and go for a flank and a grenade, but I don't think he has the infiltration. Meanwhile, back over here, Howling Banshee's now in quite a bit of trouble. They get knocked over by Kill the Weak. There is an upgraded squad of Chaos Raptors. These Howling Banshees are way overextended, and they are definitely gone. So I don't know what was going on right there, but Tsototar losing track of his Howling Banshees and loses them. Even these Chaos Space Marines in trouble. Just a few too many mono losses I feel like we're seeing from a lot of these players. Just some clear overextensions. Times when we should just see some squads really retreat out of there much, much sooner. These Raptors in particular are another squad that are in quite a bit of trouble. They are in here against a Wraith Lord, but what's going down? That is the Chaos Sorcerer. Oh, the Chaos Sorcerer got sync killed by the Techmarine. Very, very nice. Dank memes actually now looking pretty strong, especially with the support of this Wraith Lord. And we have a single squad of Tzeentch Chaos Space Marines, but there are double tacks with Sergeants. The tacks with Sergeants are not going to be able to put out the kind of ranged DPS that a squad of Tzeentch Chaos Space Marines will, but they will be much, much more versatile because they have an AV weapon and they still have decent range DPS. Overall, things looking nice for the blue team at the moment. Dank Memes just has to be a little careful not to overextend. He's getting a very nice generator bash, but he also has to be cognizant of the fact that at this point in the game, or at this point in just the ebb and flow of moving forward, pushing, and retreating, that the Chaos players in the blue team should be coming back out, and he wants to move back. So Dank Memes actually just straight up retreats his attacks, and Tsototar does start pulling back. So they had enough situational awareness right there to win their engagement as well as pull back in time. We do have the Raptors jumping in, and actually I think it's a smart decision to retreat and then continue to just move back with the Wraith Lord. The Wraith Lord would counter this squad of Raptors, but I think he has to be aware that there's a lot of support coming for these Raptors, including this Chaos Dreadnought right here, potentially other forms of AV, and he doesn't really want to risk losing that Wraith Lord, at least not yet. This Wraith Lord still has a lot more to do. Alright, now he's actually turning around and committing. I think he's just lucky that this Chaos Dreadnought has been idling. Needs to be very, very careful. Even though the Chaos Dreadnought is not a very hard source of AV, it's still a source of AV. He needs to respect it. He can't outrun the Dreadnought either. It runs at the same speed. Meanwhile, on this side, we do have lots of power bashing going on for Kisuke. The Orcs are so great at power bashing just because of the raw DPS coming out of their squads. Right now, the double Shooter Boys. These are two squads of fully upgraded Shooter Boys with their knobs. Actually, I could be wrong. Yeah, in fact, one of them actually does not have the big shooters. One of them does, though. It's still a lot of DPS. Usually, after a single one engagement, you can just move forward with the Shooter Boys, bash like 2, if not 3 generators, if not the whole power farm, and then move back before your opponent can get back out. One of the greatest strengths of Orcs, especially more so in 1v1, but, you know, in 2v2 as well. I mean, well, and in 3v3 as well. Blastmaster shot goes in. Must have been targeting the scouts because it did not hit either of these tack squads. And right now, this Techmarine actually seems to be doing pretty well. He's gone with a full-on melee loadout, going with the Axe of the Mechanicum, the Bionics, as well as the Refractor Field. Refractor Field is going to give him an energy field, which is quite effective, makes him very, very tanky. He's really bleeding actually a lot of models with this Axe right now. The Axe of the Mechanicum also does power melee, and it drains energy on hit, which is always very nice, increases his melee skill. And then he does have Bionics. Bionics, also a great war gear, usually overshadowed by the Signum armor for, to be fair, very good reasons, but still very good. Increases his melee damage, gives him a lot of health and health regeneration, and also grants that amazing powerful sweep ability, which absolutely destroys melee units by disrupting them, particularly the low health melee units, because it actually does a lot of damage to them. So like heretics, especially get destroyed. Sluggas, Banshees really get messed up by Bionics and by extension Powerful Sweep. Alright, looks like the engagement's going to go on right here. The Chaos Dreadnought now upgraded to the Mark of Tzeentch. Not terribly surprising. We do have a Chaos Sorcerer leading the charge, teleporting in to try to go after the Guardian Weapon Team. He might take out the Guardian Weapon Team. He can do it, but it might cost him. Actually, wow, so that was... Unfortunately, did not go in Tenso's favor. He lost his Sorcerer and did not manage to kill the Guardian Weapon Team. It was a close call, to be fair. So he just really went for it. I think what he should have done... He probably should have waited a little bit more and brought up a little more support, because it looked like that was mostly the Sorcerer and the Dreadnought. So the Sorcerer was just a little overwhelmed. Alright, at this point, we definitely need the two Dreadnoughts to both target the Wraith Lord. That is absolutely the best use of their time right now. They will absolutely overwhelm the Dreadnought with major DPS. And they will even be able to do it right through the repairs of the Dire Avengers. However, here's the support from Dank Memes. Techmarine is in here again, being absolutely dominant. He should actually turn around and face the Bloodletters, but a great Let the Galaxy Burn knocks over the Tax, one of them retreating. Bloodletters facing out of the warp, and these Chaos Space Marines getting absolutely wrecked by the Techmarine. Does not manage to lose another model. He might get one more, does not get it. Meanwhile, back on this side, Slugger Boys need to be very, very careful right here. Charging in, I mean, they will win against the Tax, especially with that Knob Leader, but they gotta be careful about a Dreadnought. Even though this is a ranged Dreadnought, the ranged Dreadnought can also always force melee against a squad like Sluggas, and it will still win even though it's a ranged Dreadnought. The Sluggas just won't do enough damage, they will take way too much damage. So if we take a look at our VPs right now, still actually pretty even. We've got 266 to 249. Right now, the count is in favor of the blue team, but the control and possession is in favor of the red team. They've got the 2-to-1, and it's ticking down in their favor. Where is the Chaos Lord? Chaos Lord should move up, go for a revive while he still has the opportunity. Allows him to level as well as, well, giving... Tenso his hero back, and that's really, really big. Like, it is absolutely not the best choice for this Chaos Lord to be capturing this point when he could be reviving the friendly hero. Any other squad could be capturing or decapping this requisition, and even getting that or decapping that requisition is not as valuable as reviving this hero. So hopefully he'll do that after getting this requisition point. Hopefully the team doesn't pay for that. I just saw some kind of model absolutely give, and now he might be losing his window because here's the flank. The flank might not be completely successful. Bloodletters are in a lot of trouble. So is the Chaos Dreadnought, but so are the Tactical Marines. Tactical Marines getting force melee. They lose their Sergeant, I believe, and here is also the Land Raider Redeemer, as well as double squads of missile attacks. The two missile attacks take out the Dreadnought, and everything's getting crazy right now. We see a not a creeping barrage, a frenzied barrage. You know, we've got all different sorts of adjectives for our barrages. Here's the support from Kisuke, switching all the way over to the middle, possibly even farther than the middle. I think we even have a Malignant Blindness from Grenta. It's one of the hardest globals to spot in a replay. You just very briefly see like that icon over their heads, and then it kind of disappears. And of course, well, I don't have Fog of War on for any of the teams, so you can't really see what they see at the moment. At any rate, red team looks to be taking the field right now, pushing back out. They're moving out together, but now we've got some Tax and some Dire Avengers taking major, major damage. Dire Avengers need to retreat or they will go down. They fleet out a little bit. I don't know what the Chaos Lord is doing. Chaos Lord, absolutely huge mistake to do a Let the Galaxy Burn right there. Because even if he pulled it off, these Tax are just too tough right now. They're level 3. They're being backed by the support of a Land Raider Redeemer. Terrible idea, and loses the Chaos Lord because of that. Now, although that's bad, for a while we actually had all 3 of the red team heroes down, but luckily for them, they've got an Apothecary player. That is and he used the... Oh, is this Guardian Weapon Team going to go down? It's not. Close call. But anyway, I was going to say the Apothecary turning the Paige did use the Laraman's Blessing Global, and he was able to revive all 3 of the downed heroes from the red team. That's just an extremely good asset to be able to revive all 3 heroes no matter where they are. And at the cost of red, without having to pay requisition, it's a huge benefit. Just one of the great assets of a Apothecary player in teams. Anyway, Bloodletter's in trouble. They phase out into the warp, but I think their time here is pretty much done. They've just got to retreat out of there. Terminators and Tzeentch Dreadnought focusing on the Wraith Lord. This Wraith Lord has been around for a while. Many of the walkers have lasted for a long time, and I might just be speaking too soon because this Dreadnought, now in a bit of trouble, actually teleported out by the Sorcerer, just to be sure. I think he was actually safe, but he just wanted to be sure. Havoc's moved up way too far forward. They're already taking a huge amount of damage from the Terminators, and they instantly have to retreat off the field. A little bit of a misplay right there to move them up. They moved up right into the firing ranges of Terminators as well as missile attacks. These missile attacks right here, one of them probably just going to try to level all the way up to 4 by killing a bunch of generators. However, they have been suppressed. We might even see some grenades going on them. They're actually taking major damage from the grenades, but they're still very, very close. Where is the Eldritch? The Eldritch is right here. Alright, Eldritch manages to kill a few Chaos Space Marine models, stuns the Dreadnought, but it's a little far forward. Oh man, if this D-Cannon can somehow get sight on this Chaos Dreadnought, well, I don't think it will. Either way, Dark Flames, potentially Heretics going into the Singularity. Look at that! Every single Heretic model, except for the Aspiring Champion, got gibbed in that Singularity. Singularity, extremely, extremely powerful against the weak models, the weak-modeled squads. So Kisuke, meanwhile, losing a Luda. Looked like he lost 1 Luda. This is apparently his other Luda, so he apparently had 2 squads of Ludas. Whirlwind out on the field for dank memes. Interesting build. He has no scouts, double attacks, Land Raider, and Whirlwind, and Terminators. Anyway, Warboss unfortunately attempted to charge, but he derped on like a line of sight blocker, or well, just terrain that was impassable, like maybe through the cover, maybe through this wall. Chaos Terminators, powerful as they are getting completely overwhelmed. Look at this firing line of attacks. Oh my god, absolutely unbelievable. Ridiculous. Anyway, double Bloodletters coming out. I don't know if that's actually going to work out well, because they're going to be teleporting into a little too much. Alright, the other squad of Bloodletters teleports in. This is a good combination, though. That is a great play from the blue team. The Weird Boy using the Warp Vomit, that puts the Tax in all sorts of trouble, because now they're getting meleeed. The Bloodletters are being supported by Worship. This is now a great play. Those are some great plays, actually, by Grenta as well as Kisuke. But here is the support from the Space Marines. Space Marines actually look like they're pulling back, though. Here the Warboss charging in, but charging in all alone. I think he's charging in just to get sight on a Rocks. He's going to lose the Warboss in the process. Yeah, he's easily going to lose the Warboss. Rocks actually doing pretty nice. That might actually be clearing the way. They need to move forward, though. They need to support this Rocks. And the Warboss actually makes it out of there alive. That was bizarre. I can't believe he made it out of there alive. Absolutely amazing. Blue team now making a nice push. The Rocks, I wish they could have followed it up a little bit more, but the Rocks still help them to like clear the way, weaken the blue team forces a little bit. Maybe not quite enough. I think it still would have been. I still think the timing and positioning of the Rocks in relation to the rest of that army was still definitely not perfect. Tzeentch missile launcher going in with a barrage, suppressing the attacks again, but they will just retreat right to the Land Raider Redeemer. And this Techmarine is being absolutely monstrous. I mean, now he's got 165 hit points. He's got a Refractor Field, which I believe has an energy to damage ratio, or energy to hit ratio of 5 to 1. That might actually be the other way around. It might be damage to energy, energy to damage. Right now I can't quite figure it out. but I'm pretty sure it's 5-1 either way. Well, not either way. It goes a particular way. I'm going to stop talking about this now. Alright, Bloodletter's teleporting in, but I think that was not a good teleport. Teleporting right in front of a Land Raider Redeemer, and one squad of Bloodletters just straight up gets wiped. I mean, the Land Raider Redeemer, it definitely is very, very powerful against infantry. It's not really the longest range of vehicles, period. And it's not really great against vehicles, but it is definitely powerful against infantry. So you don't really want to be jumping squads right in front of the Land Raider Redeemer. For the most part, the only squads that want to be like really going right up against the Land Raider Redeemer are things like Paladins, Assault Terminators, and this is actually now looking really, really rough on the blue team. In some ways, the blue team really seems to be sustaining the heavier losses right now. However, they do have the VP lead and the double cap, and the VPs are ticking down in favor of the red team. What I'm expecting right here, I'm expecting that we'll probably, well, I mean, it might not be fair to say this, but right now, to be honest, I'm foreseeing a victory in favor of the red team, but it'll take a little while because, of course, they'll have to get the VPs back in their favor. Meanwhile, ooh, we have the Warboss trying to apply some VP pressure by going for a back cap while everything else is going on. Meanwhile, yet another Rox. This Rox, if it's going down, looks like that Rox wasn't quite hitting completely center. So it didn't quite hit that Land Raider Redeemer head on, and the Land Raider Redeemer is still getting repairs. Anyway, we do see a Warp Spider Exarch now using the Shimmer Orb so that all incoming and outgoing ranged fire is pretty much halted. Or is it? It looks like this avatar is getting hit inside the Shimmer Orb, which should not be possible. But the Warp Spider Exarch seems fine. Here we go with a Wailing Doom, knocks over the Terminators, does pretty decent damage to them. I guess teleport must have been on cooldown, because otherwise the smart decision would have been to teleport away from the Wailing Doom and not take damage. Alright, meanwhile, wow, this is actually getting really down to the wire. Blue team has a significant VP lead, 219 now to 28. But I have a feeling, yeah, now it's whited out with the Warboss coming in to put more pressure on the natural VP for the red team. The Warboss right here doing pretty nicely. He does have the spiky armor, which does increase the health regeneration of the Warboss. It's definitely one way to give the Warboss much, much more staying power. Another way, of course, is to get the Heavy armor, which doesn't grant the health regeneration, but it grants much, much more health. Anyway, back here, what did I miss here? Did I miss a nuke here? Because we're just seeing all sorts of craters. We're seeing flying voodoo orcs. Awesome stuff. Another Eldritch right on top of a bunch of stuff. Something got wiped there. I couldn't even tell what. It looks like the Chaos Terminators are nearly down. And I'm still foreseeing a win in favor of the red team, in part because the blue team is now just getting hit way too hard, taking way too many squad losses. Dank memes holding really, really strong with 2 squads of level 4 attacks, as well as some Terminators with the Assault Cannon. I actually feel like the Assault Cannon is not as commonly purchased these days as it used to be, since it's mostly a straight DPS increase. You also get an increase in range on the lead model, which is a double-edged sword, because it can shoot from longer range, but when it's shooting from longer range, it also won't be doing its maximum damage, because the Stormbolter models will not be in range. I feel like generally the Cyclone Missile Launcher actually really seems like the most desired of the Terminator upgrades these days, since it adds like a whole new dimension to your squad of Terminators. You suddenly have long-range AV and disruption on your Terminators when you didn't before, and that's what this squad of Terminators doesn't have. Alright, we've got 1 squad of Terminators on the point, and if they can capture this, if they can just capture this point, that's really going to put a lot of pressure on the red team, because that means it'll be a 2-1 in the blue team's favor. Terminators managed to finish the cap. Are they going to teleport away? Yes, this time they do teleport away. We have an Imperial Abyss on top of some Space Marine stuff, right on top of The Land Raider Redeemer, oh my god, hard to say. Land Raider Redeemer taking some pretty significant damage, taking, I think, actually over 1,000 damage from that Imperial Abyss. It's moving forward now, exposing itself to some Chaos Terminators as well as a Tzeentch Dreadnought. Meanwhile, VP over here actually managed to be whited out. I think part of what's going on is that Kisuke is focusing a lot more on the middle, so he actually managed to leave this contested VP open. But Knobs take out a Dreadnought. This looks like some Knobs that are fully upgraded at this point. Most likely, I think they had Meaner and Greener activated. They do have their huge hammers, and they do have their Knob. And they probably also had some buffs activated as well. Red team actually with the double cap, quite possibly soon threatening the triple. The Techmarine gets knocked down by the Chaos Lord. We briefly had some subjugated Terminators, but then the Sorcerer got knocked out, incapacitated. One of the big risks of the Tome of Subjugation. Have to be very careful with that. Use Worship, use Line of Sight blockers, or really just use Subjugate when you're already in a position of advantage and your Sorcerer is not likely to go down. Subjugate, not quite the I win button that some people make it out to be for many of those reasons. Especially in 1v1 where getting hero incapacitated is a much bigger deal. Anyway, all sorts of things going on. The Chaos Lord going in again, but he's not going to be able to tank the range damage of the Land Raider Redeemer as well as the Terminators and the Tax. We have the Chaos Dreadnought going in again. It's a 1-to-1 cap again. Absolutely amazing right here. So much pressure from Kisuke on the natural VP for the red team. I think at this point he should even like just go for the point right now. Put one of these shooter boy squads on the point. Go! No, he's moving the shooters back down. He should just go for it. Like, put one of these shooter boy squads on the point. I feel like that's a big mistake for him. Now we have a Warp Spider Exarch put down the Shimmer Orb, and that's going to be an easy recap for the red team. So I think a little too conservative there by Kisuke. Should have just went in and went for it, pretty much. This Techmarine has been an absolute beast. As far as the heroes go, I'm pretty sure that Techmarine is the MVP. Level 10, he's probably killed a lot of models and a lot of high-value models. We're seeing high-level heroes all around, but I mean, the Techmarine is level 10. He's the only level 10 hero around, with the second closest being this level 8 Warboss, and the Warboss has definitely been doing a lot of work. Red team now really looking to take this. They have a double cap, soon to be a triple cap, or not. The Weird Boy manages to knock the Tactical Marines off the point and keep them off. Again, one of these squads right here needs to get on this point right now. Time is ticking. Both teams are under the gun. The red team cannot afford to give up a point, and the blue team really does not have that much time to put a unit back on the point. I don't even know what they can do. If Kisuke had enough red for a rocks, I would say put it on this Land Raider Redeemer. He doesn't. This is really, really looking in favor of the red team. I think pretty much it's got to be Grenta right now. Wow, his Terminators are taking so much damage. I was going to say it pretty much has to be him putting his Terminators on this point and getting the decap even under fire. But instead it's Kisuke, yet again, with the Warboss. He's still got the spiky armor. He's going to get the decap before this Singularity goes off, but the Singularity is definitely going to pull him off the point and won't allow him the full cap. So Kisuke, honestly, right now, really keeping the blue team in this game, but I don't know if it's going to be enough. Especially, I imagine we're going to see some kind of call-in here. Has to be Space Marines. Is it a Venerable? No, it's a Tac Swap. I don't know if Kisuke can do it. If he can, it's a big benefit to him. I don't know if tax forcing melee is actually a good idea. Kisuke, he needs Warboss buffs on this Warboss, though. Like, alright. But they have the time to get back on the point. Can the blue team get back on this point right here? If they can get back on this point, but they can't. Plague Marines go down, so the red team manages to get the decap on this VP. I'm pretty sure. I don't know if the Terminators can do this. It's so close. They can't! They get obliterated. It's too bad they're not obliterators. So yeah, this is looking like the red team's game now. There's no way they can get back out on the point. And yeah, Grenta is saying he lost too much, and they really did lose too much. So not much happening now, but yeah, there's just no way they can do it. So VPs are just gonna tick down in favor of the red team at this point. And there goes the game in favor of the red team. Oh, I wanted to mention something, and hopefully you're still here, because I wanted to say this at the beginning of the video, but in a few days, I might actually be meeting up and meeting Red Rupee. I'll keep you posted on that. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the cast. Have a good night.